Lead the charge.
Welcome back to Lead the Charge. Today's going to be a pretty interesting one. We have two different things going on, and I'm sure you guys are getting used to this by now that every single episode has a different element. And in this case, we have a different location. So today we have Ryan Straz Strong Foundation, and it's going to be a really interesting story. And I don't want to make too much of an introduction here because I think we're going to get into the deep end. And we're at Launchpad at Heritage Pointe, which is unusual for our show because it's always in our office. So I know I'm excited for this one. How are you guys doing?
Good. Yeah, no, nice day. Can't complain. Gonna play some golf after this. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good day.
Are you planning on playing like a full round or just a few?
I think,
few
Heritage Point has a 3-hole practice loop
Yeah.
here. So I just, if I don't want to go for a whole nine hole round, I'm just going to go do a loop and consistently just keep doing circles until they kick me off.
Yeah. No, that's fair. I think we're probably gonna end up over there after this as well too, right?
Yeah, we're gonna attempt to play some holes. I don't know how that's gonna turn out, but
Yeah, we were talking about this before, and I don't know if Kai and I look like golfers, but we definitely are golfers. We're terrible.
I mean, you could have fooled me with the outfits today. So
Yeah.
yeah.
No, we're definitely not good. I don't know if I'll ever get good. It's too. Every time I go out there, I end up getting frustrated by like the eighth or ninth hole, and I'm wondering what I'm doing there. And then you have to finish the rest of it because everybody else is involved. But I'm sure you guys have been in those situations before where you feel like, why am I here, right? So
Oh yeah.
it's never ideal. So you guys had a chance to meet before, and today was my first time meeting you. And you guys had actually connected at the surf game, right?
Yeah, we met at the end of this year. I can't remember which game it was, but it was about a month ago.
Yeah.
Jared introduced us, so really cool. And then yeah, super excited to have you on the podcast now and be able to chat a little bit more, get to hear a bit more of your story and kind of dive deeper into it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and yeah, I'm excited to kind of share it and on a kind of a different format, right? Like podcast out at Launchpad, can't complain.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should discuss that, right? So why are we at Launchpad? And it's a pretty interesting opportunity because this is something that this only came across our desks like maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago, I think.
Yeah, right before I left.
Really recently. And what it was is that, and you guys are hearing a lot about them all the time, but the guys and the team at MCA, sorry, ended up lining this up. And what I'm alluding to is that we actually have an event coming up, right? And there's an entire philosophy and a framework about what that event is supposed to be raising money for. It's going to be on August 27th at this location at Heritage Pointe. And we're going to have two parts to it. But before we get into that, why are we hosting this event? And I suppose if you could tie in Zeno on how we're supporting it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I guess I'll start off with the Straz Strong Foundation. I mean, our aim is to give back to those with both mental and physical disabilities an opportunity through adaptive sport and rehabilitation funding. Like my whole journey after the accident was about getting into rehab back in a sport because it taught me so much both on and off the ice. And that commitment level, that drive, that motivation to reach your goals is what taught me so much and is going to continue to teach me along the way to, success, I guess. And that's when I had the idea of like, how can I help others sort of find their open doors, their new beginnings, how can I help them reach their goals? And, I started the Straz Strong Foundation to help sort of raise funds for adaptive sport equipment because it is quite expensive and inaccessible. Rehabilitation funding, like after a while, it gets to add up, right? Like a session's about $100 and sometimes people don't have the funds, right? So if there's a way for us to sort of mitigate that cost and make it more accessible for people to access, that's the whole point of the Straz Strong Foundation. And with Zeno and our connections through Jared and, everyone that we know, I think our values align in wanting to help the community and better those around us as well. So the idea of the launch charity event came up. Golf is a big part of my life aside from hockey. And, I thought, I have this paragolfer machine that helps me stand up and play the sport. How can I get more people involved? Like these things are expensive, right? And
Yeah, it looks expensive. It looks pretty slick too. And I think the newer one you have is from Germany, right?
yeah, it's from Germany. And, I think total cost plus shipping is like almost 30 grand, right? And just insane.
Yeah.
So the whole point of this tournament is to raise awareness for sort of how inaccessible some adaptive sport equipment can be. And we're going to try and raise funds to, disperse some of this equipment across Calgary.
Yeah, and that's amazing. I think more than anything else, when I was trying to understand, and we do this for every guest that we have, first and foremost out of respect, is try to understand the individual a little bit better. And I was trying to figure out exactly how you got to this point. Now, Vi and I obviously have like a story of how Zeno came to be and all these different things. Everybody has a story, but yours is pretty unique. Like what you had to go through is not what anybody ever wants to have to go through. And even the life that you're living right now is one of inspiration. But in order to be able to get there, there's this entire chasm of things that had to have happened. So are you comfortable walking through what got you into this position in life and the moment that everything happened that led you up to this moment, to
Definitely.
this opportunity?
Yeah, like I guess I could start when I started playing hockey, right? Like I wasn't the most skilled guy out there, but I would work my bag off, right? Like just work and try and make teams, and I would continually get cut, and it would just infuriate me, right? Like I'm more motivated to like prove them wrong and let them know they made a mistake, and just sort of this stubborn attitude. And so obviously throughout my life, continuing to get cut and find new pathways led me to building up this mindset where, I'm not going to let anyone dictate my life. I'm going to take control and find opportunities wherever they may be. And so after the accident, I remember being bedridden, and the doctors came in and they're like, you have a less than 2% chance of walking again. Right. And obviously it's hard to hear as an 8-year-old kid, but another part of me was like, kind of F you type of attitude. Like,
Yeah.
I'm going to do whatever I can. If there's no time limit on this, I'm going to do whatever I can to regain any sort of function I can. So, since that point, from there, I've gotten surgery in Thailand that helps me move muscles below my injury. I've done a whole bunch of stuff like physio consistently just to try and recreate those neural pathways. And maybe I'm not going to get there next year or the year before, or sorry, the year after, but maybe 10 years from now, 20 years from now, with the help of technology, I can get there and kind of stick it to the doctors a little bit. And so I guess the main point of it all was like, I wasn't going to let outside factors dictate where my life was going. I was going to try and take control of, my attitude, my mindset, and find opportunities, even though sometimes you're going to face adversity along the way.
Yeah, and I think that's a difficult piece in terms of like accepting whether you're going to accept somebody's perspective or you're going to be able to create your own. And Kai and I started Strives for Sustainability off that same mentality. He was the one that actually pushed me. So he was an external factor that ended up becoming a benefactor of everything that we've done. And I got into a motorcycle accident, same thing. Like I was laying in bed and uh, I didn't really know what to do. And his idea was, let's run marathons and raise money. So your injuries are obviously way worse than mine. So what is it that has been affected on your body that the accident ended up causing?
So the list of injuries that I went through was obviously a T1, T2 spinal cord injury. So my vertebrae that were protecting my spinal cord was shattered and severed my spinal cord almost like 98%. On top of that, I broke, pretty much almost all my ribs and had a punctured lung, bleeding in the pelvis, cracked skull, like a cracked L vertebrae, like just went through a whole swack of things. And I just remember waking up and obviously my family's around and just having these tubes in me and like IVs and just the morphine drip where you hit the button because you don't want it to go away. Just remembering that, like I was in consistent, like constant pain, like 24/7. I just keep hitting the button. So yeah, the list of injuries like obviously weighed on me, and I just remember that feeling. So now I can sort of, if someone's going through something similar, I can relate to that and try to help them out. And it's one of those things. Everyone experiences injuries differently.
Totally.
And for me, it was like, remembering that pain, knowing that there's probably not a whole lot in this life that can get worse than that. So that's where I try and look on the positive of it, right? Like I hopefully never will experience anything like that again, and just kind of move forward.
That's intense.
Yeah.
That's intense, man. And like, yeah, like first things first, I don't even know how to quantify like how I would be able to get my mind into that perspective of having pretty much your body taken away from you, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just to summarize it and keep it simple. And as an individual, 18, uh, and you're 24 now, so it's a little bit under 6 years since that moment, right? And first things first, like kudos, man. Like I don't know how you've done it and how you've overcome it because a lot of people will falter, right? So I think you definitely got some special, and you look good. You still got the hockey flow and everything going hard, right? So, and I see that even online, you're still actually playing hockey in an adaptive manner. So that piece of getting through that and going from hitting a morphine button to not, and actually just living a normal life now, because it doesn't seem like anything is ever going to hold you back. What was the key to getting from that moment to allowing your mind to shift to where it is now, being reliant on something that was taking the pain to being accepting the pain and allowing it to be a tool for you?
Yeah, that's tough because it was a long process. Obviously, you look back on it and you're like, oh, like what if this didn't happen, or like I wish this wasn't the way it was. But there comes a time when you sort of learn to accept it in a sense, and you just like, there's nothing I can do about it. We can't time travel, can't do anything. Move forward, right? And that was the biggest thing I always learned was no matter what happens, continue to push forward, and that's something my dad always taught me. So when this obviously happened, it was like nothing I can do about it now. Just move forward. Be mindful of it, understand what's going on, accept it in a sense, and then just move forward. So that was my complete mindset, is always moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like it sounds like you have a good family unit around you as well too, right? Do you have siblings and
Yeah, so I have two younger brothers and a younger sister.
yeah? Well, you're the oldest.
Yeah, I'm the oldest, so
wow.
Oh
you know
man.
that was also another tough thing was having
Well,
my siblings there.
and how old were they when this happened?
They would have been 16, I think. My two middle brother and sister are twins, so I think they would have.
Identical?
Yeah, or
I-
sorry, fraternal.
Fraternal? I have identical twins.
No.
They're almost 3.
Okay, wow.
It's fun, right?
Yeah.
Like they're weird people, but
Okay.
also awesome at the same
Yeah,
time, right?
I agree.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they were 60, and then my little brother, he would have been about 5 or 6 at the time. So
Oh no,
yeah,
just a
so
baby, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, pretty much his whole life up till now has been me in a chair. So I didn't really get to experience, doing stuff with him if the accident didn't happen. But
Right.
again, you can't dwell on it. You can just kind of learn from it and move forward.
Right. And do you feel that in that moment, like obviously your family's around you, were your parents the ones that were helping you through this mentally and physically, and they were the consistent piece, or were there other individuals that were also part of that process?
There was a lot. Like as soon as it happened, I just remember being in the hospital bed, and there's just like every day someone new or like 10 other people, and then getting calls and all this stuff going on. Like the media attention and everything like that was so overwhelming that I didn't really have a chance to process anything.
Yeah.
And it was consistent for a year where I was just always busy doing stuff and not really thinking about what happened. And I mean, obviously along the way, there's going to support you and take care of you and do what they can. But yeah, I didn't really have that. I didn't need that support right away because I was so consistently busy. I didn't really think about anything. But then the pandemic hit and nothing was going on. So that's when I really started to process these emotions and the memories and stuff. And that's when I really needed to lean on my like smaller support group, family, went to therapy, coaches, teammates, whoever it was, just did my best to try to talk to them.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we talk about a lot, right? Like Kai and I, to be fair, we built a business to the point where it is right now, and our support system was quite literally us. And I think we shut a lot of people out of our lives and didn't want to let them close because you didn't want them to feel your pain, right?
Yeah.
And do you find that going through this process that you had any of that where you ended up having to shut yourself off from certain things in order to be able to continue moving forward, or was it more of an open book experience where everybody was welcome and you kind of wanted that to be the process?
It was a mix of both. Like everyone, obviously welcoming and helping me out and asking questions. I get it, but then there was times where I'd try to go on a boys trip or something to Kelowna, and I'm like, I feel like such a burden because they're having to change certain plans or they're having to do certain things, and that would be the
Yeah.
most weighing on me because I don't want to do that to anyone. And
Yeah.
so it was sort of a mix of like, this is it, and if they can't, they think of it as a burden, then maybe they're not your friend, right? So
Totally, yeah.
it's one of those things. It was a mix and learning not to get into my head so much. So
Yeah.
it's a whole process, and I'm still learning today. Like I'm still early on. A lot of spinal cord injury guys I meet, they've been in this process for 10, 20 years, and they're like, yeah, you're just a baby to this, this whole process. So I'm learning every day and just trying not to get in my own head.
Yeah, and that's fair. I mean, you're still really young, right? So I think I can't speak to this specifically, but I suppose that's the reality of anything in life is that we were joking around because, I'm 10 years older. Kai's catching up to me here too. You're getting pretty old. Just wanted to put that out.
Yeah. I'd say it,
He's 4 years younger. So it's, but ideally, the piece that I've always found is that like, no matter what, life just moves on. And what intrigued me about you is that you chose to not internalize everything, but really just become a part of like allowing your story to become a community thing, right? And that's where the Straz Strong Foundation has obviously come from. And you have these goals and aspirations to be able to bring this to life and help individuals enter into the adaptive sports realm in a little bit, or actually let's just call it the sports realm in an adaptive manner, a lot easier, right? So I've seen footage of you play hockey in an adaptive manner and then golf. So hockey, that one makes a lot of sense, right? Like obviously that's something that's close to your heart. That's probably never going to stop. But golf, where did that come from? That's what I'm kind of interested about.
So golf, I started when I was about maybe 6 or 7, and I would golf with my dad, his brother, and then my grandpa out in Chestermere. And so I just always would play golf and didn't really think anything of it. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go pro or anything. I'm just playing for fun and trying to get good. So that on top of hockey, it kind of correlated because in the summers I would have time off the ice. And so I just go golf with my grandpa and then build up all these memories, continue to golf, continue to get better, and just sort of became a part of my life. And after the accident, I was like, well, how can I golf? And so I came out here for the first time and was golfing out of my chair like I was earlier. And I mean, it was okay, but I was just putting so much wear and tear on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if golf's going to be an option. And then I found out about the Paragolfer machine. And that's when I'm like, how can I, get one out here? How can I rent it or buy one? And went through this whole process, got into the machine for the first time, and I'm like, all right, we're back. So, this whole, it's sort of like full circle, like something that was with me the entire time is coming back once again.
Okay, cool. And I think the biggest part about this is being able to reach the larger spectrum of individuals so that they can understand that there's actually a path to success here. And you're trying to lower the bar to entry, but raise the bar in regards to accessibility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So have you found that you've hit a lot of obstacles, or where do you find that those obstacles exist and that you're having difficulty?
I think obviously raising awareness is important, and people are cognizant of what's, adaptive sports, right? Or sorry, sports in an adaptive manner. And it's like, okay, cool. And then that's it. That's where it stops. It's like, no, we can make it more accessible. Like, get some equipment, fund these programs, get some more awareness, allow these athletes to have platforms, something, right? And I feel like the conversation stops once they understand what the sport is, and then they kind of move on and focus on their own agenda. But through the Straz Strong Foundation, we aim to go above and beyond that, and essentially just allow these athletes to thrive in their sport without having to worry about costs and inaccessibility, things like that. And it's an entire process, but we have a huge group around us to support. I mean, especially Zeno, right? Like, you guys are helping out with this tournament a ton. So just want to say thank you, and we'll get there one step at a time.
No, I think for us it's more of a thank you in your direction. Like, we're honored to be a part of it. And one of the questions that we always end up getting asked, especially by our leadership team, when you're in those weekly board meetings and they're trying to disseminate what the best decision is like, why does this actually make sense? And when we were going through the conversation, for me it was really simple. I'm like, okay, well, we're focused on the community. This is just that, right? Is that you're trying to make people's lives better every single day. And sports is an excellent outlet. And it seems like a lot of them recently has been about sports on the podcast. We've had some boxer, basketball player, and then a hockey player, and golf. I guess hockey/golf player now, right? Yeah. And I think community is the main piece, but I think it's also like sports has been the centerpiece of our lives too for a long time, right?
Yeah, I think sports is just such a key thing, right? Like, it helps so much in so many different ways. So just to bring it all together and then go back to community with it, it makes sense. So for us, it was an easy decision.
Yeah. But just to let the cat out of the bag, we're actually more soccer players than anything else. And we're terrible. I'm saying it again, but we're terrible at golf. I'll put us in a group together because Ty's a little bit better, but I'll drag the group down. I'm like, yo, let's just play best ball. Like, I give up. Like, I'm just gonna kind of go for it. It's almost like a day outdoors getting burnt by the sun.
Yeah, is
what it ends up being, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Do you you said you do that free hole loop, and the one question, this is more from a technical piece. Obviously the device you use, how long does it last?
So the charge, like on a full battery, should last, anywhere from 4 to 6 hours. So that should be enough to get through at hopefully 18.
Yeah.
But the other day, actually, we were doing a shoot to promo the event, and it was like less than half. So that it didn't charge right. And we finished, I think, 5 holes, and it started dying on me. So we like rushing to get back to the clubhouse. So we're like, okay, now we know like half battery is like 2 hours.
Yeah.
So I mean, on a full battery, 4 to 6.
Yeah, range anxiety, but in a
yeah, we get that too.
So have you heard about range anxiety before? No. It's a phenomenon that exists in the electric vehicle world. Is that people, especially when they get into electric vehicles, are so used to going to a gas pump, and gas pumps are everywhere, right? I think we've built an awesome infrastructure as like a first world country, especially like anywhere you go in North America, there's a gas station there, but do you know if there's going to be an EV station there, right? So that's where the range anxiety comes into place. Now, if you're living in the city, you just plug in at home. It's not a big deal. But I guess hearing that you experience range anxiety on the golf course is pretty funny.
Yeah, we just need chargers, like portable chargers everywhere.
Yeah, quick chargers.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be so hard to do on a golf course.
Imagine you'd have to have portable something, like
a solar system,
a
solar charging.
Something that goes in the back of golf carts.
Yeah. Or even put a solar cell on. Yeah, there you go.
Oh. Yeah. I mean, technically, how often, especially in Calgary and surrounding area, when you're golfing, it's sunny.
Yeah.
So it could work.
Yeah.
Or at least it would take the edge off a little bit. I'm wondering. Okay, so we shouldn't get too technical here because we're gonna end up losing some people. But kinda, if you're okay with us looking underneath the hood, I want to see the specs on it.
Absolutely,
cool. Yeah, and then see what the rate of energy consumption is on this. Well, it would be interesting to know.
Yeah, it'd be cool to even design or come up with something new, right? Like instead of having it charged all the time, we're always about innovation. So
yeah, why not? Why not? I mean, we're not the smartest guys. Maybe we could figure something else out. But, yeah. So one of the goals I know that you had as an individual, or not even a goal, it's something you're working towards, is you want to get on Team Canada, right?
Yeah, so I after the accident, I knew hockey was a part of my life, and I knew the extent of my injuries. I knew hockey wasn't going to be an option, so the next best thing was sled hockey, and I'm like, oh, sled hockey, it's hockey, right? And so 4 months after the accident, I got onto the ice in a sled, and I'm like, this is so much different. This is going to be a hard journey, but as soon as I was out there, I'm like, how can I implement what I learned throughout my entire career into now parasport? And so it was like training in the gym, doing drills that sucked, that so I could get become a well-rounded player, and would consistently do it. And within a year and a half, I was on Team Canada's development roster, which is like right below the Paralympic level. So now it's just a matter of getting an invite every September and trying to make it before the next Paralympics.
That's wild.
Yeah.
So I think
Hang on, you said 4 months after?
Yeah. 4 months after the accident, I got
Wow.
onto the ice.
that's crazy.
Man, that's wow.
Yeah. Like I said, I was pretty stubborn. So
Yeah, I was gonna say
That's
that
insanely
is insane. That
Yeah.
is
That's insanely stubborn.
yeah.
Insanely stubborn. Yeah, after I got into
Wow.
once again, not even comparable from like how much damage your body went through, but from the time that I got the injury to the time that we ran our first marathon was 6 or 7 months.
Yeah,
Something like that. And it was
I
just my
can't
ankle and the
remember.
knee that was giving me problems.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Wow.
minor potatoes, and that in itself was horrific.
Mhm.
Like going through that first run, the mental more than anything else is what
Yeah.
I went through.
Yeah.
Do you find that it was the same thing, or was it like everything all and above when you got on the sled and you started?
Yeah, I mean, when I was out there, it was like, I describe it like waking up on Christmas morning, right? Like you're not thinking about anything, you're just there enjoying it.
Yeah.
And so, I got on the ice and I was like, okay, like this is exciting, this is fun, this is new. I know I'm going to be awful at it to start, but like maybe I can get better. And I tried along this journey, right? I try not to take it too seriously, because then you start getting frustrated. You don't start seeing as much progress when you start dwelling on the mistakes and not being at the top level. So the entire process was just about having fun. And if I do end up making Team Canada and going to the Paralympics, then that's great. But if not, it's all about what I learned along the process and just the work I put in.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and it's only because you said something about just having fun, right, and not taking it too seriously. Have you developed a life mantra yet?
It's tough. I mean, there was always one quote my dad taught me that is pretty consistent in my life, and it was when one door closes, another one opens.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, that's kind of the mantra I live by, but I don't, I don't have any others. I mean, I feel like I hear so many and I live by so many that it's hard to just pick one.
Kai's is the one that rings a bell here. So he just got it. He just got it stamped on his body.
Yeah,
when he
permanent
was in Europe. So life's a joke.
ink, yeah.
Okay.
Where did that come from?
Yeah, that came about a long time ago, but like to not, because I think I told the story on something else before, but ideally same thing, right? Like if you take it too seriously, at the end of the day, it's not going to change anything. And sometimes in moments, you just have to look at it as like it's a joke, in a sense of like, again, you got to enjoy it, you got to laugh about it, and you got to enjoy that moment. And funny enough, I actually have, for our marathons, I tattooed all the times and the airport codes on my ankle, and right above it I have "enjoy the journey," because it's just something that like a lot of people forget, because you get so deep into something and then you realize that the end goal isn't what you're actually going towards, it's the journey of getting there.
Yeah.
So hearing you say that, it's super relatable. I think that's what life's all about, right? So
Exactly. And
Yeah.
what I've learned is that it can change in an instant.
yeah,
There's no point in being miserable about it. So
100%.
just enjoying it.
Yeah, and Kai taught me something pretty interesting the other day as well too, and what it was specifically about timelines. Now, in the last episode, we talked about a timeline that he imposed on himself. He wants to have kids before he's 35, but this is a different timeline that I'm alluding to, because that one has a lot of logic behind it, and I make sense. And for the record, I have 3 kids.
Yeah.
So I was pretty quick out of the gate. I'm like, I want to have kids while I'm young, and they've been great. And obviously, you've experienced what it's like to grow up with twins. And I'll have to pick your brain later on that one,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
having 2 in front of me is probably it's the coolest experience. But in regards to what Kai had taught me, is that if you have a goal in mind and then you force a time frame onto it, it creates unnecessary chaos. Obviously, we have a goal of solar on 1 million homes by 2040. That's our big corporate goal, and it allows the team to be able to have measurables and KPIs and able to move on. But life isn't really like that, right? Life, you can't put KPIs in place. You can't really have that rigid structure. So as you're going through this journey, and especially with the Straz Strong Foundation, we're talking about like almost a blanket or like an umbrella approach to everything, right? Try to cover as much and protect as much as possible. Do you have anything specific inside the foundation that you really want to see happen? Let's say 10 years out, 20 years out, 30 years out.
Yeah, and I think when I think about the Straz Strong Foundation, obviously we aim to make things easier for people within this community, but the main message is honestly just making things more accessible. Like the message, our values, we want those to live on. Right, regardless if we make a huge push in the world, right? We want that message to live on. We want to inspire those within this community to also make the same initiatives, and sort of have that message keep getting passed down generation after generation. And we're not looking for any credit. We're not doing any of that. We're just doing it so that life becomes easier, the message lives on, and we create that awareness piece that essentially just keeps going, right? Because for example, if we bought machines, they can only last so long,
Yeah,
versus the message and the values that you bring, those can last forever.
that's
I like that.
that's wise.
I like that.
That's wise, especially for 24, man.
Yeah.
I'm just teasing. You've obviously been through a lifetime worth of stuff in a matter of a few years, right? So, as an individual, and I'm just curious here because Kai and I, the last 8 years have been an absolute grind. So Zeno started 8 years ago in April of 2015, and we've been really talking about like what happened to us in that period of time. And you don't realize until you get far enough out from the moment of inception the trauma that it actually caused you, but the benefits that come alongside of it. There's, like you said, there's a good way of looking at things is you got to have fun, you got to keep a positive mindset. But we are now at the stage where we realize that hey, some damage has been caused and we need to be able to find ourselves again and almost preserve that inner child. Have you gotten to that point yet? Have you in your journey, based on what happened 6 years ago, do you find that you've found that inner spirit that you had right before that moment of that accident happened? Or are you still going through the process of rebuilding yourself?
Yeah, I think the entire story from when I started hockey at 4 and stuff like that. I think the identity that I built up until the accident is still the same person, but now I'm adding on. So I've had people come up and ask if I'm planning on writing a book or something. I'm like, no, like I'm just starting. Like this is a new journey. This is a completely new story and different timeline and pathways. So I feel like this is just the start. And maybe when I'm older and in my 30s, I'll look back and think, okay, I came a long way, right? And my story's not over. It's continuing to build. So that's where I'm kind of on the fence. Like I think, I'm still the same person, but I'm also open to changing in different ways that are going to benefit those around me.
Yeah, yeah. And I think for me, like the thing that's correlating the most, and I suppose maybe this is just the kind of person that I am, is like hearing the rawness of like what you went through. Like I wasn't aware of all the details, like the punctured lung, the broken ribs. Like yeah, I don't know how you went through what you went through, man. And now you look good. Like I think I already said that earlier on. Like you look physically fit and you look like you got it all together. How do you feel like your life is though? So obviously you look a certain way, you talk a certain way, and even the way that you present yourself is so professional and well put together. Um, do you s- do you find that your life now with I guess almost in an adapted manner, do you feel like you have everything that you need to be able to live a normal life, or do you find that there's still certain things that need to improve?
Uh, like in my life personally, I think there are things that can improve. Like, I can talk about all these things that I'm doing in sports and the Straz Strong Foundation, and maybe if I don't push it a little further or continue to grow the message and actually start making initiatives out there, I think then that's what kind of makes me nervous. It's like you can talk the talk, but can you walk the walk, right? And
Yeah.
that's something that I'm trying to pursue is continuing to push the agenda and actually start doing stuff within the community. And personally, like with work and relationships and family, like it's one of those things where I'm like, is this all sustainable? Because life can get pretty busy and it's hard to balance that. And not going to university, not going to college, not really learning time management, but kind of getting thrown into a world where it's like, all right, what are you going to do now, right? Like you're starting from sort of a blank slate, right? You never went to college after hockey. You're 18 years old. You're starting a new life. Like, what are you going to do about it? And so it was almost like I had to speed things up, had to learn on my own, and try and figure out what I wanted to do in life. And it's one of those things where I'm like, I can be nervous about it, a little bit stressed out, but I'm just continuing to try and make that push and just kind of take a breath every once in a while and realize if you do the right things and you're a good person, good things will turn out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good approach, man. That's like in a very practical approach almost, right? In terms of leading your life. So then what does the day-to-day look like to you? Like when you wake up in the morning, I know you've talked about this before and previously and openly, but I know there's the things that you do, but what is your mind going through now? Like what does that look like on a regular day basis? And then what are the pieces that fit into that allow you to be able to feel like a day is fulfilled? So what does a good Monday or Tuesday look like when you feel like, yeah, you go to bed and you're like, that was a good day?
So yeah, I try and hit physical activity like a ton. Like, maybe it's ice or like a strength workout and cardio or something, right? Like just getting physically active so my body's tired, but also, making a push for, an initiative for Straz Strong, or like trying to book a public speaking gig, or, share my story, try and do something sort of mentally fatiguing as well, in a sense. I know it sounds, like I'm trying to just burn myself out, but that's not the case. It's like I consistently have to be busy and away from the house. And then, after a long day, 5, 6 o'clock, I can, relax, unwind, turn everything off, and realize that the next day I set myself up for success by doing everything that I need to do today that might not have been fun. So I just try to somewhat fatigue myself mentally and physically so that I go to bed stress free.
Nice, nice. And that's a good approach. I think for what it's worth, at the age that you're at, I suppose we force it, burn ourselves out, right? Like I think it's kind of a nice thing to do. And what do you do when you find you get to that point and you need to relax? Are you going on vacations? Like what's your outlet?
That I'm still learning on that, because sometimes, like for example, an off day, like from working out or whatever, I'll be sitting at home and they're like, all right, don't do anything, maybe stretch, move around lightly. And you're like, no, my brain's wired to like just go hard again, right? And that's the hardest thing, is fighting yourself, because I think as an athlete, if you're not working out, you feel like the competition's catching up, and you're like, if I'm not working out every day, I'm not catching up, I'm not getting better. But so turning that brain off, turning the switch off is something I'm consistently working on. But it's one of those things where I just, I got to fight myself a little bit and be like, okay, man, just take a breath, relax, don't worry about this today. You can always catch up, versus I have to answer it right away, or I have to do this right away. So
Yeah.
it's about just kind of flipping the switch, which I'm trying to learn how to do better.
Yeah, and then I suppose, just out of curiosity, because this is your life now, right? What was your routine like before?
So my life was all hockey. Like I moved away from home, obviously. So it's, you're on the ice, training off the ice. And that was basically your routine, right? You could get a job in between. And I worked at pro hockey when I was 16, and would get discounts on gear. So everything was revolved around hockey, golf, hanging out with friends. Nothing career wise, because after hockey, my season in Humboldt, I had plans to go play university hockey down in the States. And that was kind of my trajectory, right? Like I was like, oh, this is how it's going to work. And obviously this happens. And now it's like, got to change the routine. But yeah, everything before was just hockey related, on ice, off ice, even just watching hockey, playoffs around the summertime. Like it was all hockey.
And Calgary's your team?
Chicago, actually.
Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh, that's an interesting one. How did that end up happening?
So Jonathan Taves, the captain, back in 2006, he came to Calgary for the World Junior tryouts, and he grew up with my neighbor in Winnipeg. So after the tryouts, he came over to my neighbor's house, started playing road hockey with him for like 3 hours. And for since I'm like, oh, this guy's pretty cool. Let's watch and see where he goes. And 3-time Stanley Cup champ, captain of the Chicago Blackhawks. So I'm like, all right, this is my team now.
Yeah,
Nice.
He's unreal.
Yeah.
Well, Kai, your team is Calgary, right?
For hockey,
Yeah.
I'm not huge into hockey, but yeah, it's Calgary.
I don't know if I've actually shared this before, but I was like massive into hockey, and it was the first lockout and the second lockout in the early 2000s that threw me off. Like the first one, I was like, okay, you know what? Like I'll see what happens after this, and I got right back into it. But the second lockout, and I think I forget the years now, but maybe it was 2008 or 2009. That broke me. I couldn't get back into it after that, because in my mind, when you're young and easily influenced, I was like, okay, this is just all about money now. They don't care about the fan.
Yeah.
And it broke me. But my team was Colorado Avalanche.
Oh, nice. Okay.
But it was weird how it happened. So when I moved to Canada, I was in, I guess I landed right into grade 1. And what it basically was is that my elementary school teacher of grade 1 and grade 2, when the classes were together, did the Secret Santa hat where you pick your name out of the hat.
Yeah.
And 2 years in a row, I got Colorado Avalanche. And that's when they were a brand new team.
Yeah.
And like it had Sakic and Forsberg, and they won the cup right out of the gate.
Sick.
So I was spoiled, man. As a kid, I had Manchester United as my soccer team, and everybody knows that they were like the best even at that time, the Beckham and Ronaldo era. And then I had Colorado Avalanche, which were winning cups right out of the gate as well too.
Yeah.
So I got spoiled pretty early, man.
No kidding.
I was even playing street hockey. I was all about the wrist shot, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, Colorado's a good team. There's actually a kid from Calgary, of Cale McCarr. I'm sure you guys know the name, and that's just incredible to watch. Like, and then obviously I'm sure you're probably a fan because he's a Calgary kid playing in Colorado, wins a cup after 2 years. Like,
it's pretty incredible.
It's a cool story.
Yeah, it just seems that they're an awesome team. They're like a dynasty team now, more or less, right? Just based on the players that they've had. But right before that price cap, things got out of control. They had, like, who did they end up having on their team? Like Ray Bork, Adam Foote, Sakic, Hayduk, like Lemieux, I think, was
Yeah.
on there at one point as well too, and
Yeah.
like the whole back end was stacked. They had Patrick Waugh, and they had I forgot who the backup goaltender was, but it was way too stacked.
Yeah.
So it's probably good that got brought in. I didn't understand. I was like, this is my team. They're supposed to be the best,
Yeah,
right? You didn't
yeah.
realize like they were overfunded. I think Walmart, one of the owners of Walmart, had like an investment inside them as well too.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I suppose there's so much money in hockey as a whole. Do you find that the rooms that you're entering now for the adaptive sports size have the right kind of funding, or do you find that there's still a lot of funding that needs to come into the space?
Yeah, there's like almost no funding. I mean, for example, sled hockey is probably the most funded sport, and Hockey Canada kind of sends a little bit of like the scraps to the sled hockey team because we're at the bottom of the ladder, which is unfortunate. And wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, these sports they have to personally fund themselves and get sponsors and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so it's upsetting because these athletes work so hard. And sometimes they don't get rewarded for it, and they don't get the platform and the what they kind of need to be successful. And I can just see them trying. So again, through the Straz Strong Foundation, we're hoping to build sort of a roster where we can help these athletes and help find them sponsors and sort of a career path that public speaking or coming to events and stuff, just to sort of help them on their path to success within their respective sport.
Nice. And you mentioned the word that frustration, right? And obviously for these players as well too. The thought's been running through my head this entire time. Do you know if there's any major hockey players that have actually tried sled hockey?
Yeah, so I know Connor McDavid has tried it, and I guess his first shot he went bar down or something, which is insane, right? Like
Of
just
course.
gifted athlete. Yeah. So Connor McDavid, I know a lot of NHLers have tried it because there have been programs within like the NHL community that have brought him out and they've tried it. I had a guy named Ty Ratty out. He's an Airdrie guy, played in Edmonton for a bit. And I think he's out in Russia right now. But yeah, we bring them out and you can tell their hockey sense is there. They're in the right spot, but as soon as they have to skate, just out the window. All the skill, coordination, gone. And it looks pretty silly, but it's fun.
And you guys hit in sled hockey as well too, right?
Yeah, full on hits.
How does that work?
I was gonna say what?
So it's shoulder to shoulder. So you can't hit with the nose of your sled. That's like called teeing. So you're basically trying to break the other person's like legs or sled. And so it's all shoulder to shoulder, or like some of the double amps like to raise their hands up and hit you right underneath the helmet. And it's pretty crazy because these guys go fast. And I like to compare it. So McDavid's fastest lap was 13 seconds. The fastest guy on Team Canada had a 17-second lap in a sled.
Whoa.
And so
quick.
the speed, the shot, like it's a one-handed shot, right?
Yeah.
And I think the guy with the hardest shot on Team Canada had an 85 mile per hour shot with one arm. And so you put that into comparison with the NHL players, and you're like, this is intense. Like, this is crazy. So, I mean, yeah, after this, we'll have to talk about getting you guys out and sets.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I'm down.
Pure
I can
entertainment,
I can skate and play on the ice pretty well,
Yeah.
or decently well. I grew up like very casually doing it, but yeah,
I don't know about that.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. But yeah, we'll come out. I'm down.
So,
Yeah, I'd
I'm
be
down. I'm
100%.
sure it'll be fun.
Yeah.
So ideally, as an individual, you seem like you've come a long way and things are moving in the right direction. The only other thing that I'm kind of curious about is your social life. So what's, I guess it sounds like you're grinding right around the clock. Yeah. And I'm always trying to compare here as well too. We shut our social life down for 7 years at least, right?
Yeah.
Kai's still single, so I think maybe he's emerging as a normal individual here at some point. Right? I was lucky. My wife was there from the start, and obviously has been part of the story as well too. So, do you have a social life, or is this your pure focus at the moment?
Yeah, so like before the pandemic, I would go back there. Like I wasn't focused on my work life or making a career or living. It was just all social life, Netflix, video games. I'm like, oh, this is comfortable. I feel safe, right? And I'm like,
yeah.
And I don't know what happened. I must have flipped a switch because I was like, okay, I really need to figure something out. I need to actually do something because it's just getting boring doing this consistently.
Yeah.
And that's when I started focusing on my work life and got so immersed in that I noticed I wasn't hanging out with friends. I wasn't going out as much, or relationships. I wasn't involved in any of that. So I almost got into a habit of like, working on this, my career and whatnot. You get so ingrained that sometimes you forget about that stuff. And you're like, oh, I don't need that. That's not important. And it's kind of a negative feedback loop because you work hard, you see rewards, and you're like, oh, I'm going to keep doing this, keep pushing. But then it's like, oh, I have a day off. I'm going to go see what my buddy's doing. And I'm just like, dude, like, we haven't talked in forever, we haven't hung out, like, it's almost like it's not the same. So I had to find a way to try to balance that, like finding a day in the weekend where we maybe go do a sporting event, like, or bring them out to golf or something, right? Just making sure that I can still play adaptive sports, still train, while also involving them as well. So that's where I try to make up for the social life that I lack in.
Crazy. You've had to adjust in a lot of different ways. And are you still at like your was it Cochrane or Chestermere that where your family grew up?
In Airdrie.
In Airdrie.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, it was Airdrie. You guys golfed in Chestermere.
Yeah, golfed in Chestermere.
So you grew up in Airdrie. Are you back in Airdrie now? And
yeah, so I'm living in. So my house was renovated in Airdrie about 2 years after the accident, and so I just have my own basement suite that's accessible. Got an elevator and open doorways, hallways, so it's nice for a wheelchair user.
Nice.
And I actually just recently bought a house in Calgary, so I went through that
congrats.
whole renovation. Thank you, and the whole renovation process, which is kind of a pain, but maybe it's something I want to dive into, being an accessibility consultant and knowing what a person needs for different disabilities. So maybe that's another avenue, but.
It's wild how underserved it is. We got exposed to it.
I sit on that board.
Yeah.
I forgot what the guy's name
I sit on the board for a company that's focused on increasing.
Yeah, pretty much it's an app that's for restaurants.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's crazy how bad restaurants are.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
it was like 40% or something only have wheelchair. Like I was mind blown when
Yeah.
you told me the statistics. But yeah, it's so for renovations and like having that niche market to help people. I bet you that's actually probably a very underserved.
Yeah, like I took this course at SAIT, and the statistics I learned were, at some point in someone's life, you're going to face a form of a disability, right? Whether that's injury or whatever it is, right? You're going to face a form of it. So why not have this universally designed architecture sort of field where, nothing really stands out like, oh, this is meant for someone in a wheelchair versus like, this is just the design. Anyone can use it.
Yeah.
The other stat I learned was that by 2030, it's estimated that 31% of all global spending will be for people with disabilities. And so that's sort of the market. It's untapped right now.
Yeah.
So our plan is to kind of get in there as the Straz Strong Foundation, create platforms and let people know that we can help consult and guide them and navigate them towards having more accessible needs met. And, again, it's just all talk right now, but we're focusing on planning it.
And curious, how long has the Straz Strong Foundation been around for?
So it started off in 2018 as like a way to fund my rehabilitation needs in the hospital. Someone started it for me, but over the pandemic, it was just sort of sitting there, and I kind of read up on how I could sort of transfer those funds raised into the community, and with the funds that were already in there, I turned it into a non-for-profit. And, as I started learning more of what we could and couldn't do, I was like, okay, well, how can we expand? How can we get outside our realm of just maybe Calgary and do more like nationally, maybe like, well, you have to register for charity. So along this whole process of things I had no idea about and asking questions, it was just about like applying for charity status and following bylaws and having this sort of outline of how a charity works. And amongst doing that and learning and failing, I'm like learning so much and know how to sort of navigate it so that it becomes hopefully successful in the future.
So it's pretty new then.
Yeah.
Like ideally from the time that it started to where we are right now, it's about 5 years. But in terms of energy that you put into it, about 2 years, give or take. So for what it's worth, and I mean, what I'm hearing is quite compelling, is that you have the Straz Strong Foundation, but right now, primarily it's focused on adaptive sports. But as you're starting to open up your world and you're starting to learn about the issues that the people that need that world where it's designed in an accessible manner are having, it's starting to help your mind evolve a little bit. So we have, Zeno looks like it's all nice and neat and organized, and it's been 8 years. And now we have the 1 million homes by 2040. We're a residential only solutions company, and we have this fully vertical integrated business from a service perspective. Believe it or not, that only happened 6 years in, right?
The actual focus, it was the pandemic. Actually, ironically enough, same thing. Kind of changed our mindset.
So for 6 years, for lack of better words, we're just dicking around.
Yeah.
So making enough money to be able to pay the bills and grow the company.
Yeah.
But from a process standpoint, understanding like what is it which having one proven method, making sure that we actually had a really clean channel for success. It took over half a decade.
Exactly. And I mean, the biggest thing, and I'm actually just recently learning about, and I'm sure you guys can, relate and or attest to this, is like, why are you doing it to start? And then it's like, how can you make it work? And what is it that you want to provide? So the biggest thing was that why right from the start. It was like, helping those with, that need help essentially. And from there, you can build off that sort of business model, I guess. And so right, like we're continuing to grow and open up our eyes to more avenues that we could potentially go down.
And how in when we say we, is it a team of you now, or is there quite a few people on board, or what
So
does that look like?
it's quite a small team. Like we have our board, like we have board of like 3 other people, including myself, and it's quite small. But when I say we, I mean a team atmosphere. Like my whole life is revolved around team atmosphere, and
Right.
anyone within the circle or anyone cognizant of the Straz Strong Foundation that wants to help out, we consider everyone team. Like we're here to collab, we're not here to compete. We all work towards a common goal. We all have the same values, so it's less of a competition, more of a collab, and how can we benefit each other?
Yeah, that's kind of.
We talked about
I brought this in the last
or the other,
episode
yeah.
too. Is that or a recent episode is collaboration over competition.
Yeah.
Is one of our internal mantras, and the whole idea behind it is that our goal is so much bigger than us that we can't do it by ourselves. So rather than competing, let's collaborate.
Exactly.
And typically in our kind of in the energy industry specifically, it's very combative. It's like one company versus another company who's doing more volume and things of that nature. And we didn't want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Even though we have marketing and positioning statements to be able to amplify the voice of, hey, we've done X and Y and Z. At the end of the day, we know that it's a rising tide and everybody has to work together. Otherwise, the problem's not going to get solved, right?
Exactly.
And one of the interesting statistics I read, and correct me here if I'm wrong, is there's a pretty massive percentage of the population in Alberta that's considered either considered disabled or have some sort of impediment that doesn't allow them to live like a purely normal life. I forget what the number is, but it's quite massive.
It is quite big. I want to say 1 in 4, but that could be
Is it 1 or 4, 1 or 6?
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wish I knew. I got to research obviously a little bit more, but yeah, it's a pretty high statistic. And like I said, at some point in your life, you will face a form of it, right? Regardless if it's a disability that lives on or a temporary one or an injury, whatever it is, like someone will face it. So it's important to help open up the eyes before any of that happens so we can mitigate risk and people sort of lost and sort of neglected.
Well, and that's the biggest piece, is opening up the eyes. And I think the exercise of me getting to know you before actually meeting you really did that for me. And I think this is something an old friend of mine used to say about relationships. It's that, and he'd always say it to some of our buddies, because some of our buddies weren't the most motivated guys, and obviously I don't get a chance to talk to those guys anymore because of the choices they made. But it's like, if you're going to be a couch potato, then you deserve a couch potato. But the problem with the couch potato is that you're both sitting on couches, so you're never going to find each other, right?
Yeah.
And I think the reality of the work that you're doing in the industry that you're in is that you don't get to see these people because there's nowhere for them to go a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So they're stuck at home, almost suffering in silence, because accessibility isn't there, or it becomes exhausting. Like how you said, 40% of
It was something crazy. Like it was
residents.
like, yeah, only 40%. And it's wild. A lot of them don't put it on their websites. Like,
And you got to make a phone
and you
call.
got to
every
go
time,
there,
right?
like,
Yeah. Oh,
like
yeah.
trial and error, which is mind blowing.
Yeah,
Like,
and hotels especially,
Yeah,
like, hey,
that's
do you have a
not-
wheelchair accessible room? Oh yeah, totally. You get there and you can't even get through the door.
Yeah.
So like the low hanging fruit is like you can't access the room. What's the point of having it, right? Like,
yeah.
so it's just little things like that that go unnoticed, and unfortunately, it is the reality. Instead of having to adapt to the environment, we want the environment to be already adapted to people with disabilities.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the world that we live in is built around a normal bodied individual that's fully capable of all of their appendices, and they don't have any issues.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, I know there's a lot of people out here watching. We need to do better. Like, we need to do better, right? And I think as an individual, I was really fortunate. My mom was very, I guess in modern terms, she was woke. So she did something really interesting when I was in elementary school. So she had talked to the teachers, and she specifically knew that the elementary school that I was going to had a class that was focused, and not a class, but like a philosophy focused on integrating children with disabilities into the normal classroom. And what my mom went above and beyond and did is she actually asked the teachers to allow me to be able to be their support mechanism during recess.
Yeah.
So I think it was like every third or fourth recess, I wouldn't be out on the playground. I'd actually be like playing with these kids. And there was the ones that I remember the most were Brian and Alana, and they were born with like autism and other major like mental disabilities, where they couldn't communicate and they didn't have the full whereabouts, but they were the kindest and like most gracious people I had ever met, and I'll never forget them. And because of that, I was always hyper aware of individuals' needs in their physical space,
Yeah.
and also in the mental space of like, hey, we have to be a little bit more gracious and things. But that's unusual. Like, and I don't think that's necessarily normal. A lot of parents aren't going to do those things. My mom being a nurse, like, she was always hyper aware of that. But with you as an individual, and you seeing all this stuff now, which is the one that's pulling the hardest on your heart? Is it still the sports, or is it just the general like realm of things that you feel like you want to solve all the problems?
it's tough because obviously you want to solve every problem ever, and that's something that's just not tangible. But again, just creating that awareness and message. Like when I play sports and I try all these activities and I post about it, people see that, right? Whether it's hockey, golf, rowing, wheelchair sports, whatever it is, like they find something they're like they can somewhat relate to, and that's what we're trying to do is find like-minded individuals and finding something that they can relate to, so that they can get off the couch or like get out of their realm and sort of push their boundaries a little bit to kind of get into that routine of, oh, I can actually pursue this and I can reach my goals and whatever it is. Like I just try to dabble in every sort of environment and every sport and everything that I can, so that people can see it, and maybe take inspiration from it, maybe use it as a motivating tool to reach their goals, pursue it.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. Kai and I really believe in like physical fitness, and we work out 6-7 times a week.
Depending on gym, like 4 or 5, but
4 or 5 in the gym, and then
other
when we're
sports,
in
yeah.
marathon training season, and sorry, we should probably share this. So when I got into that motorcycle accident and Kai pushed me to that first marathon, at the end of the first one, he convinced me to shake on 50. So we have 50 that we're committed to. We've done 5 so far.
Yeah.
I thought it was 15.
No, it's 50. You can't change it now. I like running now. This is the problem.
Yeah.
He started
I don't
it
like
and doesn't like running anymore.
I have no desire.
And I'm like, I'm hooked. Like and maybe I can speak to this because I can imagine like when I'm not training and I'm back to like my normal routine, it's almost traumatic.
Yeah.
It's like, what am I supposed to do? It's almost like I lost a friend.
Yeah.
When you have a really good routine and you no longer require it to be able to live the life that you need, it's kind of weird when that happens, right?
Yeah, like I mean, routines are such a big thing, and once you start getting comfortable with it and start getting used to it, you're like you chase it more and more. But then as soon as something kind of either comes in or interferes, you're like sometimes you have that little panic, right? And we're like, oh, I don't know what to do now. But it's again, it's all part of like, okay, well, how can I make it? Like finding an alternative or finding a way to actually incorporate it into the routine and add and build and take away. And it's an entire process that I don't think any human's perfected, because no matter who you are, it's some a wrench gets thrown in there, you're like, oh geez, like here we go again.
And the bigger point that I want to kind of get to is that seeing the fact that you're doing all of this and you're building a business, and non-for-profit, mind you, but a form of a business, and you're physically fit and you're staying healthy. If whoever's listening out there, you have no excuse. Like there is zero excuse. We can. Like there's moments too where we probably don't want to work out, but where we built that baseline discipline, right?
Yeah.
And do you find that was a key? Is that once that baseline was established, that all of the pieces of the woe was me kind of went away? Because I'm imagining that you went through that too, right?
Definitely. I mean, I guess I'll touch on my fitness a little bit. About a year and a half ago, or a year and a bit now, I went completely sober. And the reason being is because it's like I'm just doing all the research and listening to podcasts of the effects of that stuff on the body. I was like, okay, well, take it away, see what happens, right? And it's gonna suck, right? That first week of off melatonin, off I won't say anything here, but to help you sleep, right?
Yeah.
And it was one of those things. Is like it's gonna be hard to wean off, but like I'm one for competition. I'm one to challenge myself and find that discipline, find that threshold, and push that a little bit. So I knew that, part of it was going to suck, and then I'm going to have temptations, right, to go out with friends and, just explore and have fun and not really care about my health. And as soon as I started pushing that threshold each and every time, I'm like, okay, I like this routine, right? And from there, I was like building up this discipline threshold once again of like, okay, an extra rep in the gym, or like, I'm going to try this new exercise that I'm scared to do. I'm going to do it just cause. And I guess from that point of completely going sober, I was like, why not? If someone tells me that I can't do something, I'm like, why not? Or like I feel like I can't do something personally, it's like, well, why not? And so I try to prove myself wrong. I try to prove everyone else wrong, and it requires a lot of discipline. And sometimes it's about doing the things that suck. And that was the biggest thing I've learned this far, and will continue to hopefully learn.
Yeah, interesting. So when we were talking sober, it wasn't just like the normal stuff like liquor and stuff like that. It was even the supplements that were helping you to be able to almost just get through your day, right?
Exactly. Like, for example, sleep, like melatonin, like I weaned myself off that. Like I used to rely on it. So I weaned it off, and that took a long time to get off of, because it's just so easy, right?
Yeah.
And I realized, and I'm sure you guys can attest to this as well, is like nothing in life with the benefit comes easy. So it's always going to be challenging. It's going to suck, but it's important to do it because you learn and you grow. And so that's where I kind of learned. I'm like, doing the things that suck, doing the things that nobody else is willing to do is going to put you ahead of the game more than you think, and just continue to have you moving in a forward trajectory.
Yeah. No, I feel you there 100%. That's why we started a solar company in the oil and gas province.
Yeah.
But little did we know we're actually an energy province.
Yeah.
Right. When we first started out, that was our mentality. But the deeper we got into it, we started realizing like how many resources Alberta has. It's a pretty amazing place right across the board, right? So I think and I'm confident on this, is that your goals and your aspirations are going to come true, especially in a place like Alberta. But I feel like it's special. What's special to Alberta about you, and why do you feel like this is the place to like hunker down and set all this up?
This is where I pretty much grew up my entire life, right? Like I moved away from home at 16 and that was just up to Edmonton, right? So I was within Alberta and I started my junior A hockey career in Alberta as well. And just kind of always been home to me and I care so much for it. It's given so much to me and, I want to give back. And, even my family, like they're all here, they're in Alberta and what better way to represent than by doing all these initiatives and pushing yourself and representing the name, representing the province and, maybe the nation at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, Team Canada for sure. I don't see that being an issue for you, man. It's just time, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and then hopefully we're part of that journey and supporting as well.
That'd be awesome.
So, this has been an amazing conversation. I've learned so much about you, and I don't know if there's anything that you want to add.
No, that was awesome. I think it's super cool just to hear the story and the more in depth and just be able to chat with you and just relate to all of it. So thanks for sharing everything.
Thanks for having me.
So in closing, I'm gonna put you on the spot here. And we've shared so much, but to disseminate it down into one statement, what is it that you want to share with people?
That's tough. There's so many, but what I usually finish off with my public speaking is, right, it's like as you go on in your journey, when you decide to reach your goals, know that when adversity strikes with the right mindset, the right people around you, not only will you be successful, but you'll truly be able to see that when one door closes, another one opens. And that's what I usually finish off with because it's been my journey thus far and will continue to be relevant.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome, man. Well, thank you for being here. This has been definitely inspirational for me as an individual. And I think the hardest part about these podcasts, just to share with you, and I know you have this probably happen when you're doing these engagements, is I find a piece of me gets left behind and a part of me wants to change.
Yeah.
So you've done that for me today. So I want to say thank you to you personally.
Okay.
And then just thank you for you being able to share your message in such a confident way. And however we can support, I obviously want to be a part of your journey because I'm convinced that it's definitely something worth investing into.
Thank you.
And I'm super excited for August 27th. So August 27th, here at Heritage Pointe, what's this?
Golf course Launchpad? Yeah, Launchpad.
Launchpad.
Yeah.
So August 27th at Launchpad, we're going to be having a pretty awesome day. And Kai, do you know the details of what's happening on that day?
Like exact details, no, but we'll do links in the description and we'll share more on all of our social medias and everything. But
Yeah.
pretty much we'll enjoy Launchpad and then also the golf course for a tournament. And super excited to support that and just see everyone come out. So
Yeah. And the goal is to be able to fundraise for the Straz Strong Foundation. And we're going to have the whole plate, right? So we're going to be out on the actual golf course. There's going to be quite a few groups. And then I think the capacity here is going to be
700.
a little bit of a networking but party, kind of
Yeah.
500 to 700 people, right? So
Yeah.
it's going to be pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I know, have you had a chance to actually play on the Launchpad side of things at both locations?
Just this one.
Just this one?
Yeah.
It's a fun time.
Yeah.
I've always enjoyed it, right? So for anybody that's out there, if you do want to participate, you'll find the links in the video. But at a minimum, everybody that watches this, please support Ryan's journey and please donate in whatever way you can, whether it be your time or in funds. His mission is important, and we want to support it as much as possible. So if you're watching this, even if it's $1, whatever it is, please take out the time and support this initiative because it's important for society as a whole.
100%.
Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
Awesome. That's
Sweet. Thanks.
Cool.